Hey there, is this camera any good or is it actually just a piece of shit? Good morning YouTube, I hope you're all having a great day. In today's video I wanted to talk about the Kandao QooCam8k and all of the issues I've been having with it in the last 3 or 4 weeks since I received it, and what Kandao have told me they're going to do to fix these issues with firmware updates. I also want to talk about the editing process. That's something I've had a lot of questions from my last video about whether you can edit this using your phone, what type of phone you need, whether the desktop app is any good. So I'm going to try and talk about that, cover that later in the video. But first of all, I want to discuss the problems I've been having with the camera since I got it, and yeah, the specifics of those problems and what Kandao have responded to me with. Okay, so the first big issue that I found with the camera is purple banding and image breakup when you're filming in the 4K 120 frames mode. So any kind of slow motion. Now Kandao have told me that this is a known issue and that they're working on a solution. What that really means, I don't know. Whether that just means that it's something that they can update with firmware, I presume, but they haven't been clear on that. But as you can see, it's pretty horrendous. You either get purple banding or image breakup, as you'll see from these 2 clips that I've put up on screen. I've tried different micro SD cards in the camera to see if that makes any difference, but it hasn't really made much difference at all. So that is a big red flag to me, that that's not working properly yet. This camera shouldn't have been released with things like that on it. The next big issue, which I have only just recently discovered when I was doing a battery life test the other day, was that the fan noise, the normal fan noise, suddenly became a very different noise, and I'll show you a quick clip now of the noise. And as you can hear from that, that is not the normal noise that this fan on the camera should be making. I mean, the fan noise on the camera is pretty loud, but that sounds like the noise of something that's broken or not properly aligned, perhaps.
That is not a sound I want to hear. Don't know about you.
So Kandao have asked me to send them a short video of the noise, which I have done now. I'm awaiting their confirmation of what I should be doing, whether I should be sending this camera back for repair, and yeah, I'll try and update in the comments after the video's put out. But again, quality control of Kandao, I've said it before in my previous video, I'll say it again now. I just think it's really poor that they're releasing this product to the market with these problems, and it may well just be my unit, but it just shouldn't really happen. Now, the third thing I listed on my email to them was that the camera is getting very hot and overheating. So they've responded by saying that they've worked out a firmware update that reduces the heat, and they will release it this month. So I'm presuming that's sometime in February. So interested to see when that arrives, whether it does resolve the issue. The one thing I would say is that the camera, it gets hot pretty quickly, but when it's recording, it actually weirdly doesn't really get that much hotter. So for example, when I did the battery test, it was recording on and off pretty much for over an hour.
Okay, so we are down to 2%. Looks like it's going to run out pretty soon. A couple more minutes probably. I'm quite impressed at how long this has lasted. Well over an hour now. Getting on for an hour and 10 minutes we're getting close to, so that has impressed me. What hasn't impressed me and is deeply concerning is the fact that when the fan comes back on in a minute, if it does, it's probably going to make that horrible noise. So I think this camera is going to need to go back to Kandao to be either repaired or replaced, which is not good for a brand new product.
And it didn't really feel that much hotter at the end of that period of time. So certainly it's not ideal, but hopefully that issue can be resolved. The next one I found was related to the overheating point. The touchscreen is really responsive when you first turn it on, but as the camera gets warmer over time, it feels like the touchscreen doesn't respond as well. Kandao have replied saying this is a known issue and they are working on a solution. Again, no detail as to what that solution will be. Presumably it relates to the firmware. And then the other one that I commented on about the camera was that it keeps crashing or freezing mid-task.
Alright, see, it's doing the same thing it was before. This camera is really temperamental, so it's not letting me start recording again. It is feeling quite warm. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time, which is switch it off.
And particularly when you're reviewing the footage on the touchscreen and swiping left and right between reviewing footage and then back to recording footage, it just seems to happen pretty much every time I use the camera. And again, they've said that's a known issue and they're working on a solution. So pretty blunt, short, nondescript answers from Kandao there. So I filmed a battery test of the Kandao QooCam and also the Insta360 and I found that the QooCam recorded for quite a while, actually longer than I was expecting it to, and this is what happened.
Okay, so that's it, gone. So that did 1 hour 7 minutes 47 seconds on my iPhone clock. I'd probably take 2 or 3 minutes off of that time, so let's call it 1 hour 5 minutes, so 65 minutes of record time, which is pretty good, I think, for this camera, given it's 8K 30 frames a second in 10-bit colour. Question is, will it turn on now? And also, has it... Alright, okay, so it's turning back on, but then it's just going straight back off. What I'm not sure about is whether it will have saved that last file or not.
So the QooCam gave about 1 hour and 5 minutes of record time. That's an estimate because every probably 10 or 15 minutes I had to pause the recording and just delete the files that were on there because the memory card was running out of space. But I'd say each time I did that, it was about 20-30 seconds, and I did it about 5 times. So I reckon take off a couple of minutes of record time, and yeah, we're left with about 1 hour and 5 minutes. Interestingly, in terms of the heat management that I've already talked about, the camera didn't really get much hotter from being on for that period of time. It seemed like it actually got hotter when it wasn't recording. So when the fans were kicking up and you're swapping between viewing footage and all the menu systems, it seems like it actually gets quite warm then, and also it uses the battery more then, it seems, which is a bit odd, but that's just how it feels. I haven't done just a test yet with no recording time, just the battery running, the camera running. The next thing I wanted to talk about was audio quality of this camera. I've seen some people saying they can't get audio from it. I'm not sure why that is. I've been able to get audio out of it both from the internal microphones and the external using a Rode Video Wireless. So in terms of the internal recordings that I've had, I've found that the audio quality is okay. It's not brilliant. When you're indoors, it's fine. Okay, so audio test 1, 2, 3, QooCam8k without the rubber bit around the edge, the protective case, and with just the internal microphones. Outdoors, like when I had it attached to the car and I was driving about 20 miles per hour, probably about 20, 25, there was a bit of wind noise picked up. It wasn't too bad. This doesn't seem to come with any particular like wind reduction setting on it like the other action cameras like the GoPro Max and the Insta360. The other thing I found is this rubber protective case that I got with the camera seems to muffle the audio slightly, and yeah, a couple of clips I recorded, it just seemed like a little bit more noticeable that the audio was quieter. In my head, so I'm not sure what the stitch line will be like. I've got one lens facing me pretty much and one lens facing away from me. So the stitch line should be somewhere where my hand is now. Overall, the audio on this camera is okay. Obviously, people's experience has varied. So again, something to be aware of. Kandao are probably updating firmware to address audio issues, but at the moment I know there has been quite a lot of people online saying they can't get audio from the camera at all. So be aware of that if you are thinking about getting this camera still. Another thing that I've had a lot of questions about is the workflow for the QooCam8k and particularly whether the mobile app is any good and also whether you can properly edit from the desktop. Now I'm on an iPhone and a Mac, and so I don't have any experience of the Android app or the PC desktop. My experience of the app has been mixed. I would say it is quite similar to Insta360's 1X and 1R apps in terms of the way you import footage and edit footage. The only thing that is different is it seems like you have to download a clip onto the app before you can actually start editing it, whereas the Insta360 1R now allows you to connect to the camera via Wi-Fi and then edit straight from what's on the camera, so you kind of miss out an extra step, which is really good and something that I really like. This is more like the 1X app where you have to download, or it seems like you have to download unless I'm missing something, from the camera, so you need to connect to the camera. One issue with that is the camera, if it's 30% or below, won't connect properly to your phone. That's what I found anyway. It comes up with a message, which I'll show you now, and it's yeah, once you're actually connected, sometimes the connection drops out. I found the connection's not that brilliant. It's kicked me out of the app a couple of times, but with that being said, generally I have been able to edit clips quite easily on the phone and export them. One thing it does do when you export it, it says if you want the highest quality, you need to connect back to the camera to do that. So that's just another step really. And I have found actually the clip I showed you just now where I was testing the internal audio near my bathroom, that was exported without being connected to the camera, and it is noticeably worse quality. One thing I've found is the maximum resolution seems to be 1080p at the moment that you can get off a phone. So yeah, when you edit through the phone app, it seems like although you should be able to export 4K, when it actually comes out, the file seems to be a 1080. So well, it's 1920 by 1080. So yeah, that is definitely something to be aware of. I'm sure that will change as they update the app and the firmware on the camera, but it's a bit disappointing that that hasn't been done yet, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, in terms of what you can do in the app, it's all pretty similar to the Insta360 one if you have seen that. So you can edit clips together. It's got tutorials for merging clips, different types of clips. So there's various different things on here like dolly zooms and inception effects and walking tiny planet, rabbit hole, all this kind of stuff. So it's quite user friendly in that regard. You have your album, which shows the app album, so what's been downloaded, and then if you click that and you're connected to the camera, it will show you what's on the camera as well. I've had issues with getting stuff off the camera when it's been on the internal memory. It doesn't seem to like that for some reason. I've been able to get it off SD card, but the internal memory's been a bit odd. They've got various quick start guides and stuff here, but like if you tap that, you get a little video quick start guide. So I think it's like anything. I think they're trying hard to improve it. Now it's out. I think they should have done a lot of this before it got released. And then yeah, you can also adjust settings, stabilization settings, color correction, all this kind of stuff. It's basically very, very similar to the Insta360 one. So I suspect they've had a look at that and decided that's quite a good way to go and basically just copied it to some extent. So hopefully that gives you an idea. I'm going to do a separate video tutorial on actually how to edit in the app, so look out for that one. Moving on to the desktop app, so QooCam Studio is what it's called, and it's been a bane of my life lately because I downloaded the one off the Kandao website. That is version 1.4.5.1, and that is what is on Kandao's own website, yet that is not working properly with the files that come off this camera. You won't be able to, it just doesn't recognize them. It comes up with an error message saying this isn't, I think it says something like it's not produced by a Kandao camera. The version you want is version 1.5.1.5, which I've now downloaded. I had to dig around in a Facebook group to find it and take a bit of a risk in downloading something that wasn't straight from Kandao's website, which I didn't really appreciate having to do. Kandao, in their email to me, suggested that that was the version that was the one to use, and they sent me a link to that. I'll try and put a link in the description below to help other people out, but you can now, it does recognize the files, and I've rendered files out of it, and it's okay. You can't really do much apart from kind of view and render out the files. Unlike Insta360's studio software or GoPro Player, you can't really do much editing, so you can't really, it doesn't seem like you can do keyframing and all that kind of stuff yet. Again, if I'm missing something, please someone tell me, but so far that's what I've found. So I've ended up rendering files, exporting them, taking them into Premiere Pro, which is what I use for editing, and then editing them in that as VR files, and then you get the higher quality. But I've had problems with that. I've put together a video of a few short clips and tried to upload it in 360 to YouTube, and it's kind of uploaded more like a 180, and the rest is blacked out. So I will try and get that to work properly, but to be honest, it is 360 workflow is difficult and time consuming at the best of times. I think the combination of the fact this is 8K footage and the fact that the software is so bad really all conspire to mean that it's just a complete pain in the backside, a real pain in the arse actually. And it took me most of yesterday trying to get it all to work. So yeah, not much to say really on that, apart from I hope it gets better, and Kandao, please improve it quickly, because it just doesn't, it's just totally underwhelming and under par at the moment. If you do like this content, do give it a like and subscribe for more stuff like this. These videos, as I've just said, do take bloody ages to create, because particularly the 360 stuff and reviewing cameras, you want to make sure you try and show people as much as possible. So yeah, it is appreciated if you do like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications. That's about all I've got to say on workflow really. It's one of those things. I wouldn't currently recommend this camera, mainly because of the issues I talked about earlier, but also because of the workflow issues. So yeah, wanted to move on finally to just other kind of oddities with this camera that I found. So things like the fact that it won't let you edit from it, or it won't let you connect to it when the battery is down at 30%. I just find that odd. Don't know why it doesn't let you get it down to like 15 or 10%. Other things like the audio sometimes seems quite good, and then other times it doesn't seem that great. The picture quality, again, it just seems, don't know, it just feels like the software and the firmware driving the camera isn't up to scratch, and because of that it's very inconsistent with what you get out of the camera. The fact that the camera constantly seems to crash when you're trying to use it, swiping between reviewing footage and recording. All of these things just mean that currently I can't recommend this camera to anyone, and until all of these issues are fixed, I wouldn't be recommending anyone purchase this. So hopefully Kandao will improve it, and they'll do that quickly. Time will tell. I'm going to try and make more videos on this camera in the coming weeks and months. And yeah, it's just been quite a frustrating process of using it so far, and even trying to test it just to get some test footage for this video. Haven't really even used it properly for anything else yet, so I'd hoped to use this professionally for a commercial project in March. I'm hoping I can still do that, but that project starts at the end of March, so if Kandao haven't sorted out all of these issues by then, and perhaps replaced or repaired my camera, depending on what happens with the fan noise issue, which sounds like the fan's just knackered and broken. Yeah, if that doesn't happen, I think basically I won't be using it for that professional job. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you've got any experiences using this camera, if you've suffered the same problems I've had. And yeah, hopefully we can all come together and help each other out and give each other ideas on how to get to a place where we can use these cameras, which we've all paid money for, or some of us have paid money for already. Obviously it's like £530 new, so I took a bit of a punt on it just because I'm in a fortunate position where I can kind of write it off against professional work. But I really wish I hadn't, to be honest. And you know, a lot of you are not in that position, and it would be quite a big amount of money to outlay for something that isn't going to work properly or at all in some cases. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you have, please do give it a like, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow, and I'm only a small channel, quite a new channel, so yeah, I'd really appreciate that, and I will look forward to seeing you all in the next video.